They say blood is thicker than water. But what they don't tell you is that blood can also poison everything it touches. I'm sitting in a lawyer's office right now, signing the final documents that will erase every legal tie I have to the people who raised me. New name. New surname. New will that ensures they'll never see a single cent of what I built. My hand should be shaking. I should feel something, grief, maybe, or at least the ghost of the love I used to have for them. But all I feel is free. My name is, well, it was Daniel Morrison. That name died the same day my mother looked at me across the Thanksgiving table and told me I was no longer her son. Now, I'm Elliot Rivers. I chose Rivers because it means constant movement, constant change, constant life. I chose Elliot because when I whispered it to myself in the mirror for the first time, I finally recognized the person staring back at me. My family rejected me because I renounced my male identity, chose to be female, and became gay. This is the story of how my family tried to bury me alive, and how I clawed my way out of the grave they dug. This is about what happens when the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally decide that their conditions matter more. And this is about the exact moment I realized that family isn't about biology, it's about who shows up when your world is burning down. But to understand how I got here, to this leather chair in this sterile office with the afternoon sun cutting through the blinds and golden bars across mahogany desks, you need to know who I used to be. Who they needed me to be. I was the golden child. Let me be clear about that up front, because it makes what happened later so much more devastating, and so much more absurd. I was the kid other parents pointed to at soccer games, at school award ceremonies, at church functions. Why can't you be more like Danny Morrison? I heard mothers whisper yelling to their kids in grocery store aisles. I had straight A's from kindergarten through my junior year of college. I was captain of the debate team. I volunteered at the soup kitchen every Sunday after church. I called my grandmother every week without being reminded. I was performing perfection. And God, I was tired. But I couldn't stop, you see, because being perfect was my insurance policy. It was my shield. As long as I was the son they could brag about at their country club, as long as I was the grandson who could recite Bible verses at family dinners, as long as I was the nephew who knew which fork to use at fancy restaurants, I thought I was safe. I thought I'd earned enough credit in their eyes that when the truth eventually came out, they'd have to accept me. How could they not? I was perfect. What a stupid, naive kid I was. I grew up in Westchester County, New York, in one of those towns where the lawns are always perfectly manicured and the houses all look like they were ordered from the same expensive catalog. My father, Richard Morrison, ran a private equity firm. My mother, Catherine, sat on the boards of 3 charities and hosted book club meetings where the women drank wine and talked about books they'd never actually read. We had money. Old money on my mother's side, new money on my father's. The kind of wealth that was never discussed but always present, like the smell of expensive perfume or the weight of thick carpets under your feet. We took vacations to Martha's Vineyard. We had a summer house and a winter house. I learned to sail before I learned to ride a bike. It was suffocating. My parents didn't have conversations, they had presentations. Dinner wasn't family time, it was performance review. Tell us about your day, Daniel, my mother would say, her wine glass catching the light from the chandelier above our 12-seat dining table where only 3 of us ever sat. And I'd tell her, carefully editing out anything that might disappoint. I'd learned early that showing vulnerability was showing weakness, and weakness was unacceptable in the Morrison household. My father barely looked up from his phone. He'd grunt acknowledgement at the highlights. My A on the chemistry test, my winning goal at the soccer game, but mostly he was absent even when he was present. I think he saw me as another investment, another portfolio to manage. As long as the returns were good, he didn't need to check in. I had one younger sister, Emily. She was 3 years younger than me, and where I was the golden child, she was the invisible one. She got decent grades, had normal friends, liked normal things. She wasn't exceptional, so she wasn't really seen. I used to feel guilty about that, about how much attention I absorbed from our parents, leaving none for her. But Emily seemed okay with it. Or maybe she was just better at hiding her pain than I was. We weren't close growing up. I was too busy being perfect, and she was too busy being overlooked. But there was this one moment, when I was 16 and she was 13, when I found her crying in the bathroom after one of Mom's charity galas. She'd spilled punch on her dress, and Mom had made some cutting comment about her clumsiness in front of the other board members' daughters. "Want to get out of here?" I'd asked her. We'd snuck out of the house and walked to the 24-hour diner 3 blocks away, still in our formal wear, and ordered milkshakes. We didn't talk about Mom or the gala. We talked about nothing. About the weird guy who worked the night shift and kept singing to himself, about whether aliens existed, about which superpower we'd choose if we could have one. It was the most normal I'd felt in years. "You're actually pretty cool when you're not being perfect, Daniel," she'd said, stealing one of my fries. "You're pretty cool when you're not being invisible, Emily," I'd replied. She'd smiled at that. A real smile. I didn't know it then, but that night would matter later. That night would be the reason I had anyone left at all when everything fell apart. I knew I was gay when I was 12 years old. His name was Marcus Chen, and he sat 2 rows ahead of me in 7th grade English class. He had this way of pushing his hair out of his eyes when he was concentrating, and I couldn't stop watching him. I'd memorized the pattern of freckles on his arms, the way he bit his lip when he was thinking, the sound of his laugh. This bright, unguarded thing that made my chest hurt. I didn't have words for what I was feeling yet. All I knew was that when the other boys talked about which girls they thought were hot, I felt like I was listening to a foreign language. And when I looked at Marcus, I felt like I was finally hearing my native tongue. I didn't tell anyone. How could I? I'd heard the way my father talked about those people when news stories about pride parades came on TV. I'd heard the pastor at our church describe homosexuality as a chosen lifestyle that was an abomination before God. I'd seen my mother physically recoil when a gay couple sat down at the table next to us at a restaurant, like their mere presence might be contagious. So I learned to hide. I learned to laugh at the jokes the other boys made in the locker room, even when they made me feel sick. I learned to date girls, nice girls who deserved better than to be someone's cover story. I learned to be so perfect in every other way that no one would think to question this one aspect of my life. I went to Columbia University because it was prestigious enough to make my parents proud and far enough from home to give me room to breathe. I studied economics because that's what my father wanted, a practical degree for a practical future. I joined the right clubs, made the right connections, said the right things at family dinners when I came home for holidays. But I also started living a double life. In Westchester, I was Daniel Morrison, the perfect son. In Manhattan, I was just Danny, a college kid trying to figure out who he actually was. I went to gay bars with a fake ID and my heart pounding so hard I thought it might explode. I downloaded dating apps and then immediately deleted them out of paranoia. I joined the LGBTQ+ Student Alliance under the guise of being an ally and then spent meetings trying not to stare too obviously at the cute guy who always sat in the back row. His name was Alex. Alex Rodriguez was everything I'd been taught not to be. He was openly gay, unapologetically himself, loud and bright and full of life. He wore crop tops to class. He had pronouns in his email signature. He talked about his boyfriend without lowering his voice or looking around to see who might be listening. He terrified me. He fascinated me. He made me realize how small I'd made myself. We became friends first. He needed help with an economics assignment, and I needed help with, well, everything else. He taught me that being gay wasn't something to hide or apologize for. He introduced me to his world. To drag shows and pride events and queer theory and the kind of community I'd never known existed. "You know you can just be yourself, right?" he'd said to me one night after a few drinks at a bar in the West Village. "Like, you don't have to perform straight for anyone." "It's not that simple," I'd said. It literally is, though, he'd replied. You just, stop lying. He made it sound so easy. We dated for 8 months. It was the happiest I'd ever been. I'd sneak into the city on weekends, telling my parents I was studying or networking or attending some university function. Alex never pressured me to come out, but I could see it hurt him, the way I'd tense up if he tried to hold my hand in public, the way I'd never post photos of us together, the way I kept him hidden like something shameful. I love you, he'd told me one spring evening in his tiny apartment, rain hitting the windows, his head on my chest. But I can't be your secret forever. It's killing both of us. He was right. I knew he was right. But I wasn't ready. I was 20 years old, financially dependent on my parents, and absolutely certain that coming out would mean losing everything. So Alex left. And I let him go because I was a coward. I threw myself back into being perfect Daniel. I graduated summa cum laude. I got accepted to a prestigious MBA program. I started dating a woman named Jessica who came from the right family and checked all the right boxes. She was beautiful and smart and kind, and I hated myself for using her. I proposed to her because my mother kept asking when I was going to settle down. I proposed to her because I thought maybe if I committed hard enough to the lie, it would become the truth. I proposed to her in front of both our families at a restaurant they'd all carefully selected, and when she said yes, everyone applauded. I felt like I was drowning. The engagement lasted 4 months. Jessica knew something was wrong. How could she not? I was present but absent, affectionate but distant. I said all the right things, but my heart wasn't in any of it. We'd kiss, and I'd feel nothing. We'd make plans for our future, and I'd feel like I was planning someone else's life. She confronted me on a Tuesday evening in her apartment. We were supposed to be looking at wedding venues on her laptop, but I'd been staring at the screen for 20 minutes without really seeing it. Danny, she said softly. We need to talk. My stomach dropped. About what? About why you can't look at me. About why you flinch every time I touch you. About why you're marrying me when you're clearly in love with someone else. I wanted to lie. God, I wanted to lie so badly. But I was so tired. I was 24 years old, and I'd been performing for so long that I didn't know where the performance ended and I began. I'm gay, I said. Just like that. 2 words I'd never said out loud to anyone except Alex. I'm gay, and I'm so sorry. I'm so fucking sorry, Jessica. I braced for anger, for tears, for accusations. I deserved all of it. But Jessica just looked at me with something like relief. I know, she said. You, what? I've known for a while. I think I knew before you proposed, but I convinced myself I was imagining it. You're a good person, Danny. You'd never be this checked out of a relationship if you had any choice. She reached across the table and took my hand. I should have said something earlier. I should have asked. But I think I was afraid of the answer. We called off the engagement that night. Jessica told our families it was mutual, that we'd realized we weren't right for each other. She protected me even after I'd lied to her for months. Even after I'd wasted her time and emotions on a relationship that was never real. I told her I didn't deserve her kindness. No, she'd agreed. You don't. But you deserve to be happy. And you'll never be happy living a lie. She was the second person to tell me that. I'd ignored Alex when he'd said it. I couldn't ignore Jessica. That night, I drove back to my apartment and sat in the dark for hours. I thought about all the years I'd wasted pretending to be someone I wasn't. I thought about Alex, who I'd let go because I was too afraid to fight for us. I thought about my parents, about their expectations, about the life they'd imagined for me. And then I thought about the life I imagined for me. I made a decision. I would come out. I would tell my family the truth. I was financially independent now. I had a good job at a consulting firm, my own apartment, my own life. They couldn't cut me off the way they could have when I was in college. I was an adult. I could survive their disappointment. I was wrong about a lot of things, but mostly I was wrong about that. I decided to come out at Thanksgiving. Looking back, I'm not sure why I chose a holiday. Maybe I thought having the whole family together would force them to act civilly. Maybe I thought the festive atmosphere would soften the blow. Maybe I just wanted to rip the Band-Aid off all at once instead of having the same painful conversation 5 separate times. I practiced in the mirror for weeks. Mom, Dad, I need to tell you something. I'm gay. Too casual. I have something important to share with you. I'm attracted to men. Too clinical. I've been hiding something from all of you, and I can't do it anymore. I'm gay, and I'm not ashamed of it. Better. Still terrifying. I lost 5 pounds that November from stress. I couldn't sleep. I kept imagining every possible reaction, from my father's cold disappointment to my mother's dramatic hysteria to my grandmother's religious condemnation. But in my best-case scenarios, they came around eventually. They got over their initial shock and realized they loved me more than they loved their prejudices. I really believed that might happen. The day arrived. I drove up to Westchester in my car, my hands sweating on the steering wheel the entire way. The house looked the same as it always did, imposing, perfect, decorated within an inch of its life for the holidays. My mother had hired someone to hang autumn garlands on every doorway and place pumpkins on every surface. It looked like a magazine spread. It felt like a mausoleum. My extended family was already there when I arrived. My father's brother, Uncle James, and his wife, Aunt Patricia. My mother's mother, Grandmother Eleanor. My mother's sister, Aunt Diane, and her husband, Uncle Robert. And Emily, home from her sophomore year of college, who gave me a tight hug when I walked in and whispered, "You okay? You look terrible." Long week, I'd lied. Dinner was the same elaborate performance it always was. 20-person table, formal china, 3 kinds of wine. My mother orchestrated it like a military campaign. Directing conversation, deflecting awkwardness, ensuring everyone was appropriately impressed by her hosting skills. I barely tasted the food. I was too busy rehearsing my announcement, trying to find the right moment. Not during appetizers, too early. Not during dessert, too late, and half the guests would have already left. During the main course, maybe, when everyone was gathered and comfortable. My father stood up to make a toast. He did this every year. Some speech about family and gratitude and tradition. I usually tuned it out, but this year I listened. I'm thankful for my family, he said, his voice carrying that practiced executive tone he used in boardrooms. For my beautiful wife, who creates these moments for us. For my brother and his family. For my children, Daniel, who continues to make us proud with his success, and Emily, who is finally showing some promise at school. Emily rolled her eyes, but she was smiling. She was used to being the footnote. I'm thankful that we've raised our children with the right values, he continued. With faith, discipline, and respect for tradition. In this world that seems to have lost its moral compass, I'm proud that the Morrison family stands firm. Something cold settled in my stomach. This was not the opening I'd hoped for. But I'd come this far. I'd made my decision. I wasn't going to back out now. I stood up. My legs felt like water, but I stood. I have something I need to say, I announced. The table went quiet. 20 pairs of eyes turned to me. My mother's smile froze on her face, that specific expression she got when something was happening that she hadn't scripted. What is it, Daniel? She asked, her voice carefully pleasant. This was it. No more hiding. No more lies. I'm gay, I said. My voice shook, but I said it. I've known for a long time, and I've been hiding it because I was afraid. But I can't hide anymore. I'm gay, and I want you all to know because you're my family, and I love you, and I want to be honest with you. Silence. Not the shocked silence of surprise, but the heavy silence of something else. Something worse. My grandmother was the first to speak. "This is a joke," she said flatly. "A very poor taste joke." "It's not a joke, grandmother." You're confused," my mother interrupted, her voice rising with each word. "You're confused, or you've been spending too much time with the wrong people, or, this is that liberal university's fault. They've brainwashed you." "No one brainwashed me," I said. "I've known since I was 12 years old. I've tried to be what you wanted, but nothing." My father's voice cracked through the room like thunder. He'd stood up, his face red, his hands gripping the edge of the table. "I will not have this degeneracy in my house. I will not have my son. My son, who I raised, who I put through the best schools, I will not have him stand in front of our family and disgrace us like this." "It's not a disgrace," I said, and I heard my voice breaking. "It's just who I am. It's a choice," Aunt Patricia spat. "It's a sinful, selfish choice, and you're breaking your parents' hearts." "It's not a choice." I was shouting now, all my rehearsed calm gone. "Do you think I would choose this? Do you think I would choose to disappoint you? I've spent my entire life trying to be perfect for you, and I'm gay. I've always been gay. I'll always be gay. And if you love me..." "Love you?" My mother laughed, and it was the ugliest sound I'd ever heard. "How can we love you when you've just told us you're going to hell? How can we love you when you're spitting in the face of everything we've taught you?" I looked around the table. At Uncle James, who wouldn't meet my eyes. At Aunt Diane, who was clutching her cross necklace like it might protect her from me. At my grandmother, who looked at me like I was something rotten she'd found in her pristine kitchen. And then I looked at Emily. She was crying, her mascara running, her hands over her mouth. But she wasn't looking at me with disgust. She was looking at me with something that might have been sorrow. "Get out," my father said. His voice was quiet now, which was somehow more terrifying than the shouting. "Get out of this house. You are not my son. You are not part of this family. Get out. Dad. Now." I left. What else could I do? I grabbed my coat and my keys, and I walked out of that house while my family sat in silence behind me. No one came after me. No one called out to stop me. I sat in my car in their driveway for 10 minutes, waiting for someone to come out and tell me it was all a misunderstanding, that they needed time but they still loved me. No one came. I drove back to Manhattan crying so hard I had to pull over twice because I couldn't see the road. The next day, my mother called. For a brief, stupid moment, I thought she was calling to apologize. To tell me they'd talked it over and they wanted to work through this as a family. "Daniel," she said, her voice cold and formal. "Your father and I have discussed the situation. Mom, we're cutting you off. The trust fund your grandmother established for you will be revoked. You are no longer welcome at family gatherings. We've informed the extended family of your condition, and they agree that maintaining contact with you would be inappropriate." I couldn't breathe. "Mom, please. Furthermore, we're removing you from our wills. We will not have our hard-earned money and legacy going to someone who has chosen to live in sin. You made your choice, Daniel. Now you have to live with the consequences." "I didn't choose this," I whispered. "Yes, you did. You chose your perversion over your family. That's on you." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice had a strange quality to it, not sad, exactly, but something close. "I raised you better than this. I gave you everything. And this is how you repay me." "I'm still your son," I said. "I'm still the same person I was yesterday." "No," she said. "You're not. That son died yesterday. Goodbye, Daniel." She hung up. I tried calling back 17 times. She never answered. Over the next week, I received emails from various family members. Uncle James said he was disappointed in me but hoped I'd find my way back to God. Aunt Diane sent me links to conversion therapy programs. My grandmother sent a single text, "You're going to hell." The only person who reached out with anything resembling compassion was Emily. She called me 3 days after Thanksgiving, her voice small. "I'm so sorry," she said. "I'm so sorry, Danny. I didn't know they'd react like that." "Did you know I was gay?" I asked. "I suspected," she admitted. "Remember that night we went to the diner when we were kids? You seemed so relieved to just be yourself. And then over the years, watching you with Jessica, it just seemed like you were playing a role." She sniffled. "I should have said something. I should have let you know you weren't alone." "You couldn't have changed anything," I said. "Maybe not. But I could have been there for you sooner." She was quiet for a moment. "Mom and Dad won't let me talk to you. They've forbidden it. They're monitoring my phone, checking my messages. They think you'll try to corrupt me or something insane like that. You don't have to risk your relationship with them for me," I said. "I understand." "Fuck that," she said, and I'd never heard my little sister curse before. "They don't get to decide who I love. You're my brother. That doesn't change just because you're gay. I'm going to be careful, but I'm not abandoning you. Okay?" I cried then. Real, ugly, grateful crying. "Okay," I managed to say. Emily kept her word. She became a spy in enemy territory, updating me on family news and ensuring I wasn't completely cut off from information about my own life. She told me when my parents donated my childhood belongings to charity without asking me. She told me when they had the family portraits professionally edited to remove me from the photos. She told me when my grandmother rewrote her will to explicitly exclude me. They were erasing me. Methodically, thoroughly erasing me like I'd never existed. And something inside me shifted. I'd spent the first 2 weeks after Thanksgiving in a grief spiral, calling in sick to work, barely eating, unable to sleep. I kept thinking there must be something I could say, some perfect combination of words that would make them understand, make them accept me. But there wasn't. They'd made their choice. And now I had to make mine. I could spend the rest of my life begging for their love, trying to earn back something I'd never actually had in the first place. Or I could build a new life, one where I didn't have to apologize for existing. I chose the latter. The first thing I did was find a therapist who specialized in family estrangement and LGBTQ+ issues. Her name was Dr. Sarah Chen, and she had kind eyes and asked hard questions. "Why do you want their approval so badly?" she asked during our 3rd session. "Because they're my parents," I said, like it was obvious. "That's not an answer. That's an obligation. Why do you want their specific approval?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. Because if they don't approve of me, then maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is something broken about me. And if I told you that your worth has nothing to do with their opinion of you? I'd say you don't understand how it feels to have your entire family reject you. She leaned forward. "You're right. I don't. But I do understand that you've tied your self-worth to people who have demonstrated they only love you conditionally. And that's not actually love, Daniel. That's control." It took 6 months of therapy to start unraveling the damage. To understand that I'd been performing for people who were never actually looking at me, only at the reflection of themselves they wanted to see. To realize that their rejection wasn't a verdict on my worth, it was a reflection of their limitations. The second thing I did was reach out to Alex. I found him on Instagram, still living in New York, working as a youth counselor for LGBTQ+ kids. He was even more beautiful than I remembered, and seeing his photos, him at pride parades, him laughing with friends, him living openly and joyfully, made my chest ache. I sent him a message. Just, "I'm sorry. You were right about everything. I hope you're well. He responded a week later, "I'm glad you figured it out. But I'm with someone now. I hope you find your peace." It hurt, but it was the hurt I deserved. I'd had my chance with him, and I'd thrown it away out of fear. That was on me. The third thing I did was find my community. Through work, I'd met a guy named Marcus, yes, coincidentally the same name as my 7th grade crush, who invited me to a queer professionals networking group. I'd been hesitant. I'd spent so long hiding that the idea of surrounding myself with openly gay people felt dangerous, like I was painting a target on my back. But I went. And it changed everything. There were lawyers and teachers and artists and engineers, all of them living their lives without apology. They talked about their partners over cocktails. They wore pride pins on their lapels. They existed in the world without making themselves small. I met Jake at one of these networking events. He was a graphic designer, funny and warm and completely comfortable in his skin. We talked for 3 hours about everything and nothing. He made me laugh. He made me feel seen. We started dating a month later. Jake was patient with me. He understood that I was still learning how to be myself, still flinching at public displays of affection, still dealing with the trauma of rejection. He didn't rush me. He just showed me what it looked like to love someone openly. "You know you're allowed to be happy, right?" he said to me one night, 6 months into our relationship. We were in his apartment, cooking dinner together, and I'd just reflexively looked over my shoulder before kissing him. "I know," I said. "It's just habit." "Then let's break the habit," he said, and kissed me again, right there in front of his kitchen window where anyone could see. It felt like freedom. It was Jake who first suggested I change my name. We'd been together for almost a year, and I'd just gotten off the phone with a debt collector calling about my father, Richard Morrison. Except it wasn't about my father, it was some scam, someone who'd found my information online and was trying to trick me. But hearing that name, Morrison, made my skin crawl. It made me think of Thanksgiving dinner and my father's voice saying, "You are not my son." It made me feel like I was still tied to people who'd made it clear I meant nothing to them. "You know you can change it, right?" Jake said casually. "Your name. If it bothers you that much." Change my name? The idea had never occurred to me. Yeah. Legally. People do it all the time. You could pick something new. Something that feels like yours. I thought about it for days. At first it seemed dramatic, petty even. But the more I considered it, the more it felt right. The name Daniel Morrison belonged to the person I'd been, the perfect son, the performer, the liar. That person was dead. I'd killed him the moment I'd said I'm gay at that Thanksgiving table. This new person, the one I was becoming, deserved a new name. A name I chose for myself. I researched the legal process. It was surprisingly simple: file a petition with the court, publish a notice in the newspaper, wait for any objections, there wouldn't be any, my family had made it clear they wanted nothing to do with me, and then get a court order. 6 weeks, maybe 2 months total. Choosing the name was harder. I made lists. I tried different names out loud, whispered them to myself in the mirror like I'd done as a kid trying to imagine my future. Nothing felt right until I remembered that night in the diner with Emily. "You're actually pretty cool when you're not being perfect, Daniel." I didn't want to be perfect Daniel anymore. I wanted to be someone real, someone messy, someone free. Elliot. The name clicked into place like a key in a lock. Elliot, which meant the Lord is my God, a little ironic given how my family had used religion as a weapon against me, but also reclaiming my relationship with spirituality, not theirs. And Rivers. For constant movement, constant change, constant life. Elliot Rivers. I said it out loud, and for the first time in my life, my name felt like mine. I filed the petition in March. By May, it was official. I was no longer Daniel Morrison. I was Elliot Rivers, and every legal document in my life reflected that new reality. New driver's license. New passport. New bank accounts. New email address. New everything. I didn't tell my family. What was the point? They'd made it clear they didn't want to know anything about my life. But I did tell Emily, during one of our carefully hidden phone calls. Elliot Rivers, she repeated slowly. I like it. It sounds like someone who's going somewhere. That's the idea, I said. So Daniel Morrison is really gone? Yeah. He is. She was quiet for a moment. Can I still call you Danny? In private? That made me smile. Yeah, You can still call me Danny. Changing my name felt like closing a door. Changing my will felt like locking it. I'd been successful in my career. At 27, I was a senior consultant at my firm, on track to make partner. I'd been investing wisely since my first paycheck, and I had a comfortable nest egg. Nothing compared to my family's wealth, but enough that it mattered. My original will, written when I was 22 and freshly graduated, had left everything to my parents. Standard stuff. I'd never really thought about it because I'd never thought I'd die young, and I'd never thought my parents wouldn't be in my life. Both of those assumptions felt foolish now. I sat down with an estate lawyer, a kind woman named Margaret who specialized in LGBTQ+ estate planning. She'd heard every story, seen every family configuration, and didn't bat an eye when I explained my situation. I want to make sure my family gets nothing, I told her. Not a single cent. And I want to make sure they can't contest it. Understood, she said, making notes. We'll include explicit disinheritance clauses. We'll name them individually and state that you're intentionally excluding them. That makes it much harder to challenge. She looked up at me. Do you have anyone you'd like to leave your assets to instead? I thought about that. Jake and I had been together for over a year, but that felt too soon to make him my primary beneficiary. But Emily. My sister, I said. Emily Morrison. She's the only one who didn't abandon me. She's risked her relationship with our parents to stay in contact with me. I want her to have everything. Margaret made notes. Any specific instructions? Yes. I want the will to explicitly state why I'm disinheriting my parents and the rest of my family. I want it on record that they disowned me for being gay. I want anyone who reads that document to know exactly what kind of people they are. She nodded. We can do that. But understand that this will might create complications for your sister. I know. But Emily's strong. And if something happens to me, I want her to have the resources to get away from them if she needs to. We spent 2 hours drafting the will. It was thorough, explicit, and absolutely bulletproof. It named Emily as my primary beneficiary. It named Jake as the executor. It left smaller donations to LGBTQ+ charities and support organizations. And it included a paragraph that started with I, Elliot Rivers, formerly known as Daniel Morrison, am of sound mind and body. I have intentionally excluded the following individuals from this will. It listed all of them. Every family member who'd turned their back on me. And it explained why these individuals chose to disown me based solely on my sexual orientation. They ceased all contact with me and explicitly removed me from their lives and their wills. This disinheritance is intentional and reflects their treatment of me. The words were cold, legal, final. They were also true. I signed the will in June. Emily was the only person from my old life who knew about it. You don't have to do this, she said when I told her. You don't have to make me your beneficiary. I don't want you to feel obligated. I don't feel obligated, I said. I feel grateful. You're the only person from that family who chose me. This is me choosing you back. She cried. I love you, Danny. I love you too, Em. They say the best revenge is living well. I used to think that was a cliché, something people said to make themselves feel better about being powerless. I don't think that anymore. Living well, it turns out, is revolutionary when people have tried to make you feel ashamed of your existence. Jake and I moved in together that fall. We got a brownstone apartment in Park Slope, Brooklyn, the kind of neighborhood where gay couples walked their dogs together and held hands at brunch without anyone giving them a second glance. We painted the walls bright colors. We hosted dinner parties for our friends. We built a life that was loud and messy and unapologetically queer. I got promoted to partner at my firm at 28. Youngest partner in the company's history. I was good at my job. I'd always been good at my job, but now I was good at it without the weight of pretending to be someone I wasn't. My colleagues knew I was gay. My clients knew I was gay. I showed up to corporate events with Jake on my arm, and the world didn't end. In fact, being out made me better at my job. I stopped wasting energy on hiding, on code switching, on carefully editing my life story in conversations. I could just be. And that freed up so much mental space for actually being good at what I did. I started volunteering at the same youth center where Alex worked. We weren't close, that ship had sailed, but we were friendly. He'd been right about me all along, and seeing him help scared queer kids find their footing made me want to do the same. I mentored teenagers who reminded me of my younger self, closeted, terrified, convinced that coming out would mean losing everything. I told them my story. I told them about Thanksgiving dinner and the rejection and the grief and the rebuilding. And then I told them about Jake and my career and my chosen family and my brownstone apartment with the colorful walls. It gets better, I'd tell them, even though I hated how cliché that sounded. Not immediately. Not easily. But it really does get better. You get to build the life you actually want, not the life other people want for you. One kid, a 17-year-old named Marcus, yes, another Marcus, apparently I had a type, told me, my parents say they'll disown me if I come out. Then they're not good parents, I said. And I'm sorry, because you deserve better. But here's the thing, their love is conditional. And conditional love isn't actually love. It's control. You're going to be okay without it. It's going to hurt like hell first, but you're going to be okay. He came out 6 months later. His parents kicked him out. He moved in with his aunt and stayed in school. Last I heard, he'd gotten into NYU on a full scholarship. That's living well. Not just thriving yourself, but making sure the next generation doesn't have to suffer the way you did. Emily called me on a Tuesday evening in October, 3 years after that Thanksgiving dinner. Danny, she said, and her voice was shaking. Something happened. My heart stopped. Are you okay? Are you hurt? I'm fine. It's not, I'm fine. But I'm calling because I need to tell you something, and I don't know how you're going to react. I put down the spatula I'd been using to cook dinner and moved to the couch. Jake looked at me questioningly, but I waved him off. What's going on, Em? I came out to them, she said. To Mom and Dad. I told them I'm bisexual, and I've been dating a woman for the past year. Oh, fuck. What did they say? She laughed, but it was bitter. Exactly what they said to you. That I'm confused. That I'm throwing my life away. That I'm choosing sin over family. Grandmother actually called me a whore of Babylon, which was creative, I'll give her that. Em, I'm so sorry. Don't, she said. Don't apologize. I knew what I was doing. I watched what they did to you, and I've been planning this for a year. I saved money. I got my own apartment lined up. I made sure I could survive without them before I said anything. Why did you tell them at all? You could have just lived your life without their knowledge. Because you shouldn't have had to go through that alone, she said, and now she was crying. Because I've spent 3 years watching them erase you, and I'm done pretending that's okay. Because I'm not going to let them control my life the way they controlled yours. I was crying too now. Jake had come over to sit next to me, his hand on my back. They disowned me too, Emily continued. Cut me off, removed me from the wills, the whole thing. And you know what? I don't care. I have a job. I have friends. I have a girlfriend I love who doesn't make me feel like I need to be someone I'm not. And I have you. That's enough. You're so much braver than I was, I said. No. You paved the way. You showed me it was possible to survive their rejection. You showed me there was life on the other side. She took a shaky breath. So thank you. For being you. For not letting them break you. We talked for another hour. She told me about her girlfriend, Sarah, who was a teacher and loved terrible reality TV. She told me about their apartment search, about how they were planning to adopt a cat. She told me all the normal, boring, beautiful details of a life she was finally allowed to live. I want to meet her, I said. Sarah. And I want you to meet Jake properly, not just on FaceTime. I'd like that, Emily said. 2 weeks later, the four of us had dinner together at my and Jake's apartment. Emily and Sarah showed up with a bottle of wine and a nervous energy that melted away within minutes. We cooked together, talked about everything and nothing, laughed until our stomachs hurt. At one point, Emily pulled me aside in the kitchen. This is what family is supposed to feel like, isn't it? Just easy. Happy. Yeah, I said. It is. I wish we'd had this growing up. Me too. But we have it now. That's what matters. She hugged me. I'm glad you didn't let them win. I'm glad you built this life. I'm glad you're in it, I said. My grandmother died in December, for years after Thanksgiving. Emily called to tell me. We weren't invited to the funeral, of course. But she wanted me to know. How do you feel? She asked. I thought about it. I'd imagined this moment before, the death of one of my family members, the way grief might hit me even after everything. But mostly I just felt, nothing. Maybe a little sad that she'd died believing I was going to hell. Maybe a little angry that she'd wasted her final years clinging to hatred instead of love. I feel fine, I said honestly. Is that terrible? No. I think it means you've healed. The reading of the will happen the following week. Emily wasn't invited to that either, obviously. But she had a friend who worked at the law firm handling the estate, and that friend leaked the details. Grandmother Eleanor had been worth approximately $47 million. The bulk of it went to my parents. Some went to various charities, religious organizations, mostly. And there was a specific clause that stated, I leave nothing to my former grandson, Daniel Morrison, who has chosen a life of sin, nor to my former granddaughter, Emily Morrison, who has likewise turned away from God's path. Even in death, she couldn't let it go. She really hated us, Emily said when she relayed this information. She really did, I agreed. But you know what? She died rich and miserable. We're living happily ever after. I think we won. My parents tried to contact Emily after the will reading. They left voicemails, sent emails, even showed up at her apartment once. They wanted to reconcile, they said. They wanted to rebuild their relationship with her. Emily asked me what I thought she should do. Do you want them in your life? I asked. No, she said immediately. But I feel guilty. Like maybe I should give them a chance. Why? Because they're our parents. Because they raised us. Because maybe they've changed. Have they apologized? I asked. Have they actually said the words, I'm sorry for how I treated you? She was quiet. No. Then they haven't changed. They just realized they've lost both their children and they're trying to get at least one back. But it's not because they love you for who you are. It's because they're lonely and they need someone to fit into the role of dutiful daughter. You're right, she said. You're absolutely right. She blocked their numbers. Returned their emails with auto-replies saying she wanted no further contact. Built boundaries that actually protected her peace instead of their feelings. I was proud of her. My parents didn't give up easily. They hired a private investigator to track me down, not hard, given that I was a partner at a major consulting firm with my name on the website. They sent letters to my office. They showed up at professional events I was attending. They never apologized. They never acknowledged what they'd done. They just wanted me to come home, to play my role again, to pretend the last 4 years hadn't happened. "We forgive you," my mother said to me once, cornering me after a charity gala. She was wearing a red dress and holding a champagne flute, looking every bit the sophisticated socialite. "We understand you were confused, but we forgive you. You can come home now." I stared at her. "You forgive me?" "Yes. We know you didn't mean to hurt us. We're willing to move past it if you are." The audacity. The absolute audacity. "I didn't hurt you," I said slowly. "I told you who I am. You're the ones who chose rejection over love. You're the ones who tried to erase me. And now you want me to come back and pretend none of that happened?" "It's time to move forward," she said, like I was being unreasonable. "You're right," I said. "It is time to move forward. Which is why I changed my name, removed you from my will, and built a life where you have no place. I don't need your forgiveness, Mother. I never needed anything from you except basic human decency, and you couldn't even manage that." I walked away. My hands were shaking, but I walked away. Jake found me 10 minutes later, breathing hard in a side hallway. "You okay?" he asked. "I will be," I said. That confrontation was the catalyst for the final step. I'd been thinking about it for a while, but seeing my mother's face, still convinced she was the victim, still unable to see me as anything other than a problem to be fixed, made the decision easy. I updated my will one more time. The new version included a clause specifically about my parents. It stated that in the event of any attempt to contest the will or interfere with the distribution of assets, a sealed letter would be released to their entire social circle. Everyone they did business with, everyone at their country club, everyone at their church. The letter detailed everything. The disownment. The cruelty. The way they'd tried to erase their son rather than accept him. I didn't write it with anger. I wrote it with clarity, with specificity, with evidence. I included emails they'd sent. I included witness testimony from people who'd been at that Thanksgiving dinner. I built an ironclad case not for legal purposes, but for social destruction. Because here's what I'd learned about people like my parents: they don't care about being good people. They care about being perceived as good people. Their reputation is everything. Their social status is their identity. And I had the power to destroy it. "Are you sure about this?" Margaret, my lawyer, asked when I brought her the updated will with the new clause. "Completely sure," I said. "They want to play games? Fine. But they need to understand that I have power now too. And if they push me, I'll use it." The will was filed and sealed. I had copies stored in multiple locations, with instructions to Jake and Emily about how to proceed if anything happened to me. I didn't tell my parents about it. I just lived my life, secure in the knowledge that if they tried anything, if they tried to claim I was mentally unfit, if they tried to contest the will after my death, if they tried to harass Emily, there would be consequences. I'd spent my childhood learning to wield perfection as a shield. Now I'd learned to wield the truth as a sword. Which brings me back to where we started, sitting in a lawyer's office, signing the final version of these documents. I'm 29 years old now. 5 years since that Thanksgiving dinner. I have a partner who loves me, a sister who chose me over blood ties, a career I'm proud of, and a community that supports me. I have a name I chose for myself and a life I built from scratch. I'm not going to pretend it doesn't still hurt sometimes. There are moments when I see a father and son laughing together in public, and I feel that familiar ache of what I never had. There are moments when holidays roll around, and I remember what it was like to have a family tradition, even if those traditions came with strings attached. But mostly, I feel free. Margaret slides the final documents across the desk for my signature. This is it, she says. Once you sign, everything is official. Your will is updated, your name change is complete, and you're legally severed from your former family. I pick up the pen. It's heavier than it should be. Any doubts? She asks. I think about my grandmother, who died hating me. I think about my parents, who would rather lose both their children than examine their prejudices. I think about every family member who chose comfort over compassion, tradition over love. And then I think about Emily and Sarah, cooking in my kitchen last weekend. I think about Jake, who's waiting for me outside right now, probably scrolling through his phone and stealing glances at the door. I think about the kid I mentored who just got into college, who sent me a thank you card that said, "You saved my life." I think about Elliot Rivers, who didn't exist 5 years ago but is more real than Daniel Morrison ever was. No doubts, I say. I sign my name in confident strokes. Not Daniel Morrison. Elliot Rivers. The person I chose to become. 6 months after signing those final documents, Jake proposed. We were on vacation in Iceland, watching the northern lights dance across the sky in shades of green and purple. The cold bit at our faces, and our breath made clouds in the darkness, and the lights above us moved like living things. Marry me, Jake said. Not a question, just a statement of fact. Marry me because I love you. Marry me because you're the bravest person I know. Marry me because life is short and I want to spend every day of mine with you. I said yes before he even finished talking. We got married in the spring in a small ceremony in our Brooklyn apartment. Emily was my best man, or best person, as she insisted on being called. Sarah stood with Jake. Our friends filled the space with laughter and love. Alex came, bringing his husband, and we toasted to second chances and being brave. My parents weren't there. None of my extended family was there. But I didn't feel their absence as a loss anymore. I felt it as a space that had been filled with better people, truer people, people who loved me without conditions. During the ceremony, I made Jake a promise. I promised to choose you every day, the way you chose me. I promise to build a life with you that's loud and messy and unapologetically ours. I promise that our children, if we have them, will never have to hide who they are. And I promise that when I say I love you, you'll never have to wonder if there are strings attached. He cried. I cried. Emily cried. Half our guests cried. It was perfect. A year later, Emily and Sarah got married too. I walked Emily down the aisle because someone had to, and her biological father had forfeited that right years ago. Nervous? I whispered to her while we waited for our cue. Terrified, she admitted. But also really, really happy. That's how you know it's right, I said. Did you learn that from your marriage? I learned it from you, I said. You taught me that family is what you make it, not what you're born into. She squeezed my arm. We made something pretty good, didn't we? Yeah, I said. We really did. Sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, I write letters to my parents in my head. I imagine what I'd say if they ever truly apologized. If they ever said we were wrong. We let our fear and prejudice matter more than our son. We're sorry. I'd tell them about Jake, about how he makes me laugh every single day. About how he knows my coffee order without asking and leaves me notes in my briefcase when he knows I have a hard day ahead. I'd tell them about my work with LGBTQ+ youth, about the kids who walk in scared and leave with hope. About being the person I wish I'd had when I was their age. I'd tell them about the life I built after they tried to destroy me. About dinner parties with chosen family, about spontaneous road trips, about lazy Sunday mornings reading the paper with my husband. I'd tell them that I forgave them, not because they earned it, but because carrying anger was exhausting and I wanted to travel light. But they've never apologized. They probably never will. And I've learned that I don't need them to. Their approval was never going to make me whole because I was never broken in the first place. I was just surrounded by people who couldn't see me clearly. So the letter stays unwritten. And I keep living my life, loudly and proudly and without apology. Please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel.